All right, welcome everybody to the Design Sprint Day for the Solution Challenge 2022 from the Google Developer Students Club, University of Ibadan. My name is Victoria Ayodeji, and I am the lead for the GDSC University of Ibadan. So if you are just joining us, please introduce yourself, your name and your location. Hi, Prince. Okay, the first thing we'll be doing today is I'll be doing introduction to what design sprint is, right? So in January, we had our info session for the solution challenge, and now in February, we'll be having the design day sprint. So usually, when you're participating in the solution challenge, you're supposed to be taken through a process of design thinking in order for you to be able to get the right solution to build, right? So that's the first step. And also we'll be having another speaker that will be taking over after me. Is a design thinking. Before he joined the call, I would quickly take my part. So yeah, welcome to the Solution Design Day. Like I said before, my name is Victoria Ayodeji. I'm the lead for the Google Developer Students Club, University of Ibadan. Before we get started, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the GDSC-UI YouTube channel so you can get updates as soon as they drop. Right. Yeah, so what is a solution design day? It is a day of workshops designed for attendees, that is people that participate in the solution challenge, to learn and practice product design skills before they get started on building their solution challenge project. So if you don't know what the solution challenge is, it is a competition between student developers across the world. They come together and they form teams. So they build solutions to solve sustainable development goals, at least one of them, using Google technologies, at least one of Google technologies to solve them. Then they get to submit their demo. So submission of demo is going to be happening by March 30th. So that's the deadline. Yeah. So today you're going to be learning how to design your product. So the first thing that you want to do if you want to participate in the solution challenge is that you register online. If you've not registered, I'll be dropping the link later on in the comment section so you can get to register. So before you get to start designing, the first thing that you want to do is to learn to identify your user. So as soon as you identify your user, then but all of this, you have to first of all form your teams. Your team should have a developer, a front-end developer, back-end, business analyst, product manager. So you guys can rub minds together and brainstorm ideas. So once you identify your user, let's say, for example, there's a user that is having problem locating, let's say like there is a new, let's say you are new to a city, right? And you don't know where to buy some things, right? You don't know the shopping malls around. So let's say that's the problem that user is facing. Then you want to you don't want to assume and say, okay, so thinking about the user now, that's what the user wants. First, you want to learn to interview users, so you can go out and interview users. Then you'll be able to see from their own standpoint of view and understand what they truly need, right? So that's the first phase of identifying the problem that you want to solve that is in line with the sustainable development goals. So if you are on this call and you are familiar with the sustainable development goals, can you type at least one of the SDGs in the chat section so I'll know you are following? Okay, yeah, while you're doing that, the second part of designing is UX and product design. So in this part, you want to make use of the skills of your designer. So I forgot to mention, you also need a designer in your team, a UI UX designer, product designer, basically. So you have to understand the design principles, how to design. For people that are familiar with user experience, you would have learned that there are certain ways to design that are called user responsive designs, right? So you don't want to put a button in a place where it is so uncomfortable for the user to interact with. So there are several principles that you must follow before you can call your product user responsive product. Yeah. So the next step is to go through the UX design process. Like I've mentioned, you design the UI, the user interface, okay, when user log in and all of that. I think that's more of what the designer would do. And okay, there are different aspects to it. There are the colors, the buttons, the text, the font size you want to use. All of that really matters when you're designing a product, right? Then you want to go into the UX design, user experience. So for a user now, I don't want to come to your site and start finding a button that I know that I'm supposed to just see immediately I log into your site, right? That kind of thing. So as soon as you're done with that, the designer would then start to sketch wireframes. Wireframes can be done using prototyping tools like Figma, Adobe XD. There are several of these design software, design tools that you can use. So that's for the designer to work on. So now we are moving on to the development part. That's the technical architecture. The developer and your team, particularly the back end, the front end, they work together on this to actually design an architecture for your product. So that's why everyone needs to come together and brainstorm together for clarity on what needs to be done and what does not need to be done. So there will not be a situation where the developer build something, add something that is not supposed to be in the product, and then you have to remove it again, and that wastes time. So everyone must be together on this. So your developer must be able to choose the appropriate tech, and don't forget that you have to use at least one Google technologies. We have several of them: Flutter, TensorFlow, Google Assistant, Google Cloud, a lot of that. So, and Google Maps, yeah. Okay, yeah, zero hunger. Okay, so um so that's the end of the it's like a brief summary of how to design. So there's a bit of a delay with our speaker, but thank you for holding on. Yeah. So, just go. Hi everyone. If you can still hear me, please kindly confirm that you can hear me by typing in the chat section. Apologies for the delay. There has been a sort of delay from our speaker.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hello.
Welcome. Okay, can get started. I can hear you. You can
Oh,
share your
you can
screen
hear me.
so we can
Okay.
get started. But
Okay.
first, I would like to read your citation. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I would like to do that first before you get started.
It's okay.
Okay. Okay, meet our speaker, Mr. Adonija Utieno. Did I get that pronunciation correctly?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, Otieno. So Otieno is a mechanical engineer who is currently involved at Gearbox Pan African Networks as a design engineer and design thinking facilitator. Gearbox is a makerspace that brings together thinkers, dreamers, supporters, builders, and trailblazers who create, innovate, and learn with aspirations to bring change and refinement by solving problems common in daily life. He is an ardent advocate of society through innovation, and this has seen him get involved in various design thinking stroke HCD workshops for the change. He has profound interest in society inclusion for positive change. As a design and innovation enthusiast, he would like to grow the society through innovation, inclusivity, and collaboration in sub-Saharan Africa. He is a design thinking facilitator with Jenge culture as well. As Jenge, he trains creators on how to bring positive change to society through visual art, fine art, and graphic design. He also runs NG Clinics as a technical director. NG Clinics is a leading card-based organization that's committed and devoted to continuously progress towards achieving its goals. Thank you. A round of applause for our speaker. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hello, once again. My name is Adonija Otieno, as you've heard, and I'm from Kenya. And today it's a pleasure to be with you on this session, during this session. And I'm glad to be your facilitator of the design sprint workshop. And before we start, I would like to introduce what design thinking is and why design thinking. And so, design thinking or human-centered design is a concept of leading with the user. And the user can be you, can be your employer, can be your lecturer back in school, and can be your mom, can be your dad. And that's the simplest definition of design thinking or human-centered design. In a more complicated definition, it starts with anthropology, where you study human beings and their behavior back in the society. And so when you build any product, you must consider the end user. And that's why we say human-centered design. Now, design thinking is categorized into different levels. We have human-centered design that I've said. We have behavior-centered design. Now, behavior-centered design, you use design techniques to change the behavior of a particular individual in a particular setup in the society. Then we have business-centered design. Now you're using design techniques to streamline your business. Maybe if it's a corporate or maybe a manufacturing industry, whichever industry that needs design techniques, you can use uh, behavior or business-centered design. Then we have community-centered design. Mostly people use visual arts and fine arts. And yeah, that's all about simplest definition of design thinking and its levels. Um, Back to GDC, Google Developers Group. I've been facilitating for Technical University of Kenya, and I got a referral to you guys, University of Ibadan from Nigeria, and It's a pleasure to have you all here. And without much further ado, I'll just share my screen and start the session. Welcome. Just a moment. I'm not so sure if you can see my screen. Cool. Thank you. So design thinking, we have 5 steps of design thinking that we are going to look at. And the first one is empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. I'm not so sure which types of products you people are building, but these cards,
Yes, we
it
can
cuts.
see your screen.
Okay, thank you. These cuts across all products that you can build for a particular individual. And we have like digital products, we have physical products, and many others. But the most common ones are physical and digital products. When I say physical product, I mean something like a phone. When you want to build a new phone, or you want to design a cup. When I talk of a digital product now, that means like a website. And website uses techniques called user-centered design. Yeah. So we are going to look at these 5 steps, and I'm going to explain each and every step and what it does or what it means. And so I introduce myself as Donija Otieno, and I'm a mechanical engineer, and I'm not going to dwell into that. And in every design thinking or design sprint session, we always have an icebreaker. And this one plays a huge role to know how your team members work when put in a team. Now that we don't have a physical design thinking session, I'll skip this slide. Uh, you are meant to sketch yourself and pin it on the wall, and so that everyone should see what you've sketched and try to match your face with your drawing. Yeah. And sketching is an aspect of design thinking or design, because before you design you have to sketch. Yeah. And it's very important to have sketching techniques as well. And so we are not going to dwell into the icebreaker session. We're just going to do the next slide. And so what you're going to look into are the key concepts and principles of design thinking. And you, as a design thinker, what mindsets should you have? And the process and tools of design thinking. Yeah. So I've just introduced what design thinking is. And this is another definition of design thinking. It's a style of thinking considered as the ability to combine empathy, the problem context, creativity, insights, and solutions, and rationally analyze solutions to fit the context. Now, when we talk of empathy, empathy is very different from sympathy. Yeah, I hope you get the point. So empathy is stepping in someone else's shoes. Sympathy is to show sympathy to someone, you know. And so when I extrapolate on empathy, for example, when you want to build, you want to solve a challenge of maybe water. Maybe there is water shortage in your area. And so you want to solve that problem. You have to go to the people involved, the people in that particular area, the people who are facing that challenge, for you to get the correct information. So you going there, sitting with them down and getting the right information is called empathy. You are trying to fit in their shoes. Yeah. And so empathy, creation of empathy is very important in design thinking, in product development. Yeah. So when you design a product to your end user, so remember you have maybe you are building a product to the market. We have two people here. We have an end user and we have a client, right? So a client might not be an end user, but again, a client might be the end user. So sometimes a client is an in between between you and the end user, and maybe sometimes the client is the end user. What do I mean by this? So an end user is that particular person who uses the product, right? A client might be the person who wants to buy the product and sell it to the end user. Yeah. So what you build must be desirable by the end user, the person who is using the product. And so the three things that are overlapping and must be considered when designing a particular product is desirability. So your product must be loved by the end user. Secondly, viability. So when we say something is viable, when you talk of viable business means that it can be done, yeah, technically or even financially. So what is technically and organizationally viable must be considered, and feasibility, what can be viable in terms of finances. So you just don't build a product and do not consider the cost. So cost is very important again in designing. You have to consider it before you produce a particular product. Yeah. So you have to consider these three things when building a product, or be it a digital product or a physical product. And so we have two different types of thinking. We have traditional thinking and design thinking. So we have some minds of a traditional thinker here, which should not be used in design thinking. Yeah. So a traditional thinker might say, we have this problem, let's jump into it and brainstorm a solution. First of all, you have to know you don't brainstorm or build a product in one day. It takes different steps to build a product, and it can take even 3 years to build a particular product, provided you're meeting the end user's needs. Yeah. You'll find me insisting on the end users because these are the people you're building the product to. Number two, a traditional thinker might say, we have a new tech. What can we possibly use it for? Yeah. You don't just jump into conclusions thinking that every new tech can solve your problem. Yeah. Another thing is our competitors just launch a particular product. How can we quickly learn how to use the product? Or our competitors just launched Z. How quickly can we also do Z? You don't copy your competitor. Yeah. You should not copy your competitor. You should bring in new ideas. And so when you copy your competitor by building a similar product as his, then you're a traditional thinker. Yeah. And so we are going to know the mindsets of a design thinker. And so design thinking uses both deductive and abductive approaches to solve problems. What are these? Now, when we say deductive and abductive, I'm going to give an example of abductive. For example, maybe in the University of Aberdeen, you're trying to get the total number of students getting into the school every day by maybe building a digital product that every time that a student comes in, he or she must use the biometrics at the gate. When every student logs in using biometric, you'll be able to know the number of students that have come in that day, right? But again, assuming that other students can fly. So maybe he gets into the school, but not through the gate because he can fly to class. That's absurd anyway. So you try to, with that, you'll not be able to get the total number of students who are getting into the school because others are flying. So when you bring in abductive approach, meaning you can make another device that caters for those who fly. So you'll be able to get the total number of people getting into the school. That's called abductive. Yeah. Yes. And abductive now is just the opposite of deductive. Yeah. And so when you use deductive, you're going to look at the experiences of people, the patterns that they make, and the stories that they have. Yeah. And using those experiences, patterns, and stories, you'll be able to create imaginations, possibilities, and equally other stories for you to come up with a better solution to a particular problem. Yeah. Um, so, what design thinking is not? We've already mentioned what design thinking is. Yeah. And so people always assume that design thinking is for creative people or product designers. No, it's not. Design thinking is for everyone, provided you bring in an idea that can solve a problem. You're a design thinker. A narrow equation to aesthetics and craft. Now, aesthetics is how your product looks. So, in as much as you might build a beautiful product, but again, a beautiful product that does not solve a problem is not a product because it doesn't solve any end user's needs. So a beautiful product is a product that solves that particular need. Yeah. And I've mentioned earlier that design thinking is not a brainstorming session because you don't just sit and brainstorm. You have to go to the field and research and know what's happening, what the end user is going through, trying to fit in her shoes. That is empathy. And it's not a one day process where you can just solve problems. Yeah. It takes a lot of time to think of a better solution to a particular problem. I don't know if you're in groups, but this is one of the workshops that I do when physically training people. Now that we are online, you're not going to do it, but you can do it when you go back and work in groups or in teams. This will you'll know how to work in a team. Teamwork is very important. Collaboration and teamwork in design thinking is important because you come together, people from different educational backgrounds, to try and solve a problem. So, for example, Victoria is a food technologist. She might need in her team a computer scientist or a mechanical engineer. That's how you build a product, bringing in people from different educational background to have ideas in order for you to solve a particular problem. Because when you say you want to solve a problem and all of you are food technologists, you can't because you will need someone else's input in form of ideas. Yeah, maybe your product is a digital product, and given that food technologists are not good in mostly they are not good in designing user interfaces, you'll need a computer scientist. Yeah. So that's why I say collaboration and teamwork is important. And so I hope that your teams are mixed, um, and it will be able to help you solve the problems you people are tackling. Yeah. So what is a good design? Yeah. Someone might say that my design is okay and it's solving this problem, but what's a good design? So a good design must reflect on the practical and aesthetics. Aesthetics means it must be desirable by the end user, and practical means it's easy to operate. Yeah. Then aesthetics in business, it means that it must be able to generate revenue as well, and a good design must be able to serve people, and that's why empathy come in. Yeah. So when your product does not serve people, then that means it's not good at all. So you have to review it. And so iteration. Iteration is the process whereby you build a product, you take it to the end user. The end user gives you feedback, either positive or negative. So if it's negative, then you have to use the feedback to go around again and build a proper product. And so design thinking is a cyclic process that has to be reviewed every stage in every stage. So the road to success does not follow a straight line. It's cyclic. It's a loop. So the more you are able to loop through, the better, because you'll be able to understand the end user and you'll be able to create what he needs, and you're able to learn the cycle. Then the higher the chances you'll be able to have a good design or good results. And so when you look at the ideal cycle of design thinking, we have collecting information, understanding the problem, ideating, creating or building the best idea, then testing the idea, building the product now, taking the product to the end user. Yeah. And again, you come to the first stage of understanding the problem once you have the feedback. Yeah. So you have to understand all those. And so here is the framework of design thinking that we talked in our first slide. And the very first step is empathize. And so under empathizing, you have to do interviews with the end user. And you have to understand what the end user goes through. Yeah. And you have to be non-judgmental, because when you judge, then that means that you'll be getting a false input. Yeah. You have to define. By defining, I mean you have to understand the persona. The persona now is a virtual or unreal, let me say virtual end user. The POV is the point of view. Point of view is like a problem statement. And so when you define, again, you have to understand your point of view, your problem statement. And we'll look later on how to generate a point of view statement. You have to have your objectives, and you have to ensure that you make wise decisions. The challenges, you have to note them down. And the third stage is ideate. So ideate is where you come as a team and share ideas. And remember that all ideas are very important and worthy. And you might converge and diverge. By that I mean there are some points where you people will be agreeing in terms of the ideas and the solutions, and it will reach a point where you people will be disagreeing again. So that is diverging and converging. Prototype. You people have to prototype. Prototyping means making a model of that particular product you're trying to build. And so you can use mockups, you can use storyboards when you're building an app. And remember to keep it simple, and use facts. Iterate quickly as well with regards to the end user's feedback. And when you're going to test, understand the impediments or the challenges, understand what works, what does not work, your role play, and what your members' role in that particular group. Yes, and we are going to look each and every step. And so you have to understand the framework of design thinking. And here You have to have your mindsets. Of course, your mindset will show you the action plan. So if you don't have like a proper mindset, then that means that your action plan will follow the same suit. Proper mindsets will lead you to proper action plans and vice versa. So we have traits of design thinkers, and these are what that you people should look into when building a new product. So you are able to step into your customer's shoes, and that's empathy. Again, you like to challenge the status quo, draw and sketch instead of typing. So earlier I mentioned that drawing and sketching is important, and so you have to do that when building a particular product. And like to collaborate in multidisciplinary team meetings. I've just mentioned this. Collaboration is important. And again, using multidisciplinary teams is important. Yeah. Being able to look at a picture and think holistically. Thinking holistically is being able to think, like for example, if I build this product, I'm building for myself. Yeah. Will it able to solve this problem that I'm facing? And so when you think around that, that's thinking holistically. Uh, you should be able to generate many new ideas, and don't be afraid to share with your friends. Many of us think that when you generate ideas and you share, then your friend will steal. No. When you share your ideas, you'll be able to understand better, because maybe the idea you have, someone is good at it, and he or she will be able to guide you through. And you have to be willing to fail as well, because if you are not willing to fail, then that means you are not a builder, you are not a designer. Yeah. Yes. And so these are the thinking mindsets of design thinkers. You have to think of your users, ask right questions to your users, believe you can draw, and commit to explore. By exploring means you have to do a lot of research on that particular product or that particular problem that you're trying to solve. Yeah. So without proper mindsets, the action plan is just a theory. And so you have to take into considerations these four key issues here. Yeah. So why do you need to ask the right questions when you go to the field to collect information? So right questions enable you empathize with your end users. Right questions connect and collaborate with more aligned with objectives. It will be able to you'll be able to gather better information. You'll be able to examine and define the problem more efficiently and effectively. Increase your persuasion and influence. Reduce potential for mistakes again. You know, when you do a lot of research, you'll be confident of what you've gathered. Yeah. And creating mistakes will be minimal. And you'll be able to discover potential issues and opportunities that you have. So here is the value of sketching or drawing. So when you sketch, you imagine better ideas. You figure out things because you'll be able to know what's missing and what's working, what's not working. You'll be able to explain and give instructions as well, and helps you to remember. You know, when you jot something down, you're able to remember what you have. Yeah. And so you've realized that these faces I've put them here. This is the third slide of them. There's an emphasizing on them because you have to follow them stage by stage. Yeah. And I'm not going to repeat what they mean because I've already elaborated them on the other slide. Yeah. So we said earlier that design thinking is not just a brainstorming session. Yeah. So the design action plan is not something that works instantly. It takes time. Yeah. It requires time and report from committed users and stakeholders involved with the same objective to make it work. It's not one day process. And again, iteration is important. So when I say it requires time and effort from committed users, remember you're building for a particular end user. He or she is a stakeholder. And there are people that this product might affect positively or negatively, directly or indirectly. Those are stakeholders. And so when your objectives align with the stakeholders, then that means that you are in the right direction. Yeah. So you have to stipulate your objectives clearly. Yeah. And so this is another workshop that we would have done, but we are not on a physical workshop. Uh, it will this one test your ability to empathize for your partner. When you build a wallet for your partner, you'll be able to know what your partner requires, what she likes, what should be put into the wallet, how many compartments should the wallet have, what kind of money does he or she carry if it's they are notes or coins, you see. What other things does he carry in the wallet? So those are the things that you should look into when you're building, for example, a wallet to your neighbor or your partner. So the first step or phase is empathize, and you should be able to know exactly what your client needs. Yeah. For example, I don't know if you can see this screen. We have 4 pictures here. And for example, this is a problem of water accessibility. So you find people going far away to fetch water, and they have to use their buckets to carry the water. And so you find that this is in a hilly place. So someone came up with a solution of a rolling drum. So someone is able to pull or push the drum with regards to the direction. So when he or she is climbing a mountain, he'll be able to pull, but you can push as well, though pulling is easier. So someone tried to solve this problem of it was in South Africa. He found that women take a long time to go and fetch water. Yeah, so he decided to build a rolling drum for them, and so this one took like few hours. Yeah, and so the woman was able to or could be able to make many trips, unlike when using buckets. Yeah. So when creating empathy, there are methods and tools that you have to use and questions that you have to use. Like, for example, what, how, and why. So you can use cameras again to study, though when using cameras, you have to ask for consent. Right? You have to have consent. Ask for permission first. When you'll be granted, then use your camera, because the people who are not won't be happy when you use camera to record them while collecting information. Secondly, you have to prepare for an interview and engage the very users. Those are extreme users. Share your story, capture everything, draw an empathy map and a journey map. So a journey map shows the steps of how an end user tries to use a particular product. Yeah. And an empathy map shows what the end user thinks, what he or she feels, what he or she does. So those are the things that you have to have. Yeah. Questions that you can ask from the end user is who are they, what they do, what they buy, how they buy, what makes them feel good about buying. So for example, when you're trying to maybe build a product that's in the market, like bread, you can ask them how they buy bread and why they buy bread. Why do they prefer bread to maybe other things that can be taken in place of bread, things like that. Yeah. So those are the kinds of questions you have to ask. And when you ask those questions, create a feedback template. So feedback template is what your client told you. Yeah. The questions and the answers that you are given. Yeah. So the benefits of knowing your end user well is to identify opportunities and product gaps. This will help you to drive the strategy. Provide quick and cheap way to test because now you know your end user, and also validate and prioritize ideas because you will realize that yes, you've generated a lot of ideas, but what actually works? So when you talk to your end user, you'll be able to know what works and what does not work. So you have to give focus to projects by building a common understanding for customers. And persona serves as a reference tool because you'll always be referring to your persona when building your product. And so this is an empathy map. I've said that an empathy map shows what the end user says, thinks, feels, and what she does. Yeah. So you'll realize that when you go to talk to your end user, maybe most of them won't be frank with you and tell you the truth. So from there, check what he or she is doing and record. So this will help you a lot. And while storing with him or her, you'll be able to know what he or she thinks and feels. Yeah. So this is very important when collecting information. And so these are the tools that I've just talked about. Very much important while collecting information. And so I've said you have to understand your user. And when you understand your user, you have to generate a problem statement or a point of view. And so a point of view have three elements: the user, the need, and the insight. So a user is that particular person. So maybe he's a college student. So maybe a college student has a problem. I'm a college student and I hate folding laundry because I can't seem to fold it the right way. So you'll realize that I've labeled this one in different colors so that you'll be able to understand what a user is, a need is, and an insight. So an insight is that statement that an end user says, the very direct statement. So for example, he says, I can't seem to fold it the right way. That's an insight. And the end user needs to fold the laundry. Yeah. So from this is just an example of a problem statement. So a problem statement will help you generate a lot of ideas using how might we questions, of which you're going to look into. And so how might we questions are short questions that launch brainstorms. They'll be able to help you generate ideas, and they fall out of your POV, that is point of view, as seeds for your ideation. And they bring wide range of solutions. Yeah. So for example, if this is a problem that this particular end user is facing, so you can say, how might we help the college students to fold the laundry in the right way? Yeah. That's like an example of how might we question that should be used to generate ideas from that POV. Then you have to have your design brief. Design brief shows your who is your end user, what is the point of view, and your how might we questions. So the how might we questions will help you generate the ideas. Yeah. And so the customer's journey. So I talked of this a while back. customer's journey shows you the stages and how the customer uses a particular product, yeah, and how and why he or she uses the product. So when you draw your customer's journey using a particular product, you'll be able to understand how uh, um, the loop is, yeah, how the cycle is, and you'll be able to create a viable product for the end user. And there's another thing we call context map. So a context map is a tool and a document that represents complex factors affecting an organization or the design for a product or a service. So we use it to share the vision and knowledge existing informally within the organization. So a context map is very important, though it's always used in business-centered design, not as human-centered design. So it's mostly used to streamline businesses, yeah, and it's used for with corporates, yeah. And we have another thing known as opportunity map. So an opportunity map allows comparison with any product in the market, which helps in the identifying the opportunities and gaps, and again allows to identify the direction of the product to meet the opportunity in the market. Yeah. And we use it to identify areas of opportunities and again align stakeholders with the shared direction. Remember, your objective has to be aligned with the stakeholders' objectives. Yeah. And so we've already empathized. We have to design, we have to define, we have to understand the POV. And so these are the tools. Workshops, you can hold workshops like here right now. And those workshops can be shareholders meetings, stakeholders meetings. You have to draw to understand your problem. You have to use posts. You have to use flip charts. User feedback is very important. Design brief, we've just talked about, stakeholders map, customers journey, and opportunity maps. So those are the tools that you can use to define and understand your problem. And so in corporates, people use design thinking to reward creativity, have creative working space, of course. You know, when you have a creative working space, you'll be able to encourage each other and also have much better collaboration on the same. Yeah. And so when you've already defined and understood your problem, you have to prototype. By prototyping means you have to build what you've been thinking of. You have to build what you've drawn. You have to build that physical product. You have to build that digital product, be it a website. Yeah. So prototyping, we have tools for prototyping. For example, if you are a mechanical engineer like me, then you have to use tools like SolidWorks, Inventor, AutoCAD, Fusion 360 to build to prototype. But when you are let me say a user, when you're building a digital product, you can use Figma, you can use Adobe, you can use Photoshop. Those are the kinds of digital product designers are using to prototype or build their products. Yeah. So there are many tools that you can use to prototype as well. So why do we need to prototype? We prototype to identify issues early, to iterate more quickly, to compare the design variations. Of course, there's that change. There's that change between the initial design and the new design, of course. Yeah, and you're able to gather design feedback better from the clients or end users. You're able to like prototyping. A prototype is like a presentation tool, so you'll be able to show someone this is what I've built, so you can give me the feedback. And prototyping again encourages collaboration between teams. Yeah. So when building like a digital product, you can use storyboards. For example, you're building an app, you can use storyboards to show the onboarding session, things like that. how to use a particular app. Yeah. So you must show how to use a particular product for your end user to get to understand what really happens when now he takes the product. Yeah. And so you might want to pitch your idea to maybe certain organization. And so always pitching takes 3 minutes, and these are structure of pitching. So you have to introduce yourself, say what your problem is and your solution. If you'll be able to demonstrate that particular solution, then the better. You should be able to show your business model, um, show impact, future plans, and maybe you can introduce now your team, and you can say a strong closing statement for your team. Yeah. And so you always ensure that your pitch lasts for 3 minutes, because that's like the standard time for pitching. Yeah. And so we've come to we are almost coming to the end of the slides. And so this is always our design mantra. Like we say, we cannot think of about solutions until you understand the problem. And again, you cannot understand the problem until you think of the solution. So these two marry each other. Eh? You have to understand the problem before you get into the solution. Yeah. And again, you cannot think about solution until you understand the problem. Very important. Though someone can say it's confusing. Yeah? And so we've come to the end of the session, and I would like to collect some questions from you if you have any. Thank you. Back to you, Victoria. Hello there. Hello. 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 Yes, the session is over already.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was asking whether there are any questions or are there any ways that I can help?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much for the session, Mr. Adonija. If you have any question for our speaker, please drop it in the chat section below.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe to this channel GDSC-UI so you can get updates on our upcoming events. We have another event coming up next week, Friday and Saturday as well. Um, I guess nobody has any question. Okay.
Okay.
So
Maybe
do you have any last word for the people that are watching?
um yes.
For those that will be participating in the solution challenge by
This is what I can say. It's a noble step that you people have taken to get into this challenge. And it's amazing to see teams participate to solve the problems that we people are going through in the society. And it's my pleasure to have trained you on the design thinking because these are tools that you have to use when building your products. And so take much considerations to design thinking, make use of it, make use of the steps that we've talked about. Yeah, and when you consider or listen to your end user, then I believe that your product will satisfy your client. And don't just build for yourself, build for the end user. Thank you. And best of luck in your projects. I wish you well.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you so much for our invite and walking us through design thinking. You were saying,
Back to you. Back to you. Sorry.
okay, okay. Thank you so much for taking us time to walk us through design thinking. I'm very sure that we've all learned one or two things about how to design sustainable products that will satisfy our end users. Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay. Okay.
So we've got
I would really want to know the participants. Yeah, I don't know whether you are going to give them certificates for attending this session or what's happening. Okay, it seems she's gone. Thank you so much. I believe you've had a great chat with me, and yeah, I wish you all the best. Bye bye.